Welcome once again to In the Dugout, your home of the beautiful game. My name is Josh, and this is the Dugout Debate. Joining me as always are my fellow presenters, partisans, and pundits, and my pals, Chris and Alex. And with Premier League table predictions, with score predictions, and with our fantasy football teams, this is our Premier League 2017-18 preview.
And to kick us off at the start of this season, we're bringing in a slightly new feature, something a little bit different to incorporate all of our African fans, and that is our new Fantasy iTeam League, which is taking place on the Soccerway Fantasy iTeam app. So me, Chris and Josh have all set up a league, and if you guys want to join, Josh will very kindly put some instructions on screen now, so you can find our mini league and play against us. And we're just going to go through our fantasy teams, tell you guys who we've picked, who our tips are for, especially the first game week. And every week when we come back and do another Dugout Debate, we're going to have a little section where we talk about any changes that we've made for the upcoming game weeks. And basically just have a merry old time with it for the next 52 weeks and hopefully don't quit after 4, which is what I normally do. So I guess we'll just kick off and do each of our teams individually, go through some of the key players and why we picked them. So I'm going to pass it over to Chris first, if that's all right.
No,
Chris, do you want to go through? Oh, wow. You're only bringing back this meme. Brilliant.
Go ahead.
Go on,
Right,
Chris.
so,
if you want to take us through some of your team.
So to start off, I've gone for a 3-4-3 formation because I always like to have as few defenders as possible so there's as little risk as possible of losing points from conceding. In goal, I've got David De Gea. He's just a pretty simple pick, really. He's an excellent goalkeeper, probably the best in the league, in my opinion. And I have high hopes for Man United this season as well because they've got a very solid defence in front of them. For my 3 defenders, I've gone for 3 centre-backs. I've gone for Jan Vertonghen and Toby Alderweireld of Spurs and Eric Bailly from also Man United. Bailly, I think, is an excellent defender and should be fine so long as he doesn't get injured again like last year. And Vertonghen and Alderweireld just go without saying. In my midfield 4, I've gone for Philippe Coutinho, who perhaps might not be with Liverpool for much longer, but we'll just skip past that. I've gone for Nacer Chadli from West Brom because he was excellent at providing assists for West Brom's sort of headed style of scoring goals last season. I've gone for Idrissa Gueye from Everton, sort of a bit of an unsung hero for the Toffees, so hopefully can pick up a few points there. And as a bit of a wild card, I've gone for Vicente Iborra that Leicester have just brought in. He scored 7 goals in the last 2 seasons for Sevilla, so hopefully he can pop up some goals for Foxes. And then for my front 3, I've gone for 3 strikers. Manolo Gabbiadini, fantastic when Southampton brought him in January. Harry Kane goes without saying, Golden Boot winner 2 seasons in a row. I've got him as my captain. And then another wild card, I've gone for Tammy Abraham at Swansea. He was banging goals in left, right and centre for Bristol City in the Championship last season. So hopefully he'll be able to do the same for the Swans in the Premier League. So that rounds off my team.
Okay. Are you captaining as well for the first game week?
I've captained Kane for the first game week.
Okay. Fair enough. Josh, would you like to take us through yours as well?
Yeah, I've gone for a rather risky goalkeeper and defensive combination of an entirely Arsenal-centric defence. So I've got Petr Cech in goal, and then I've got the back 3 of Per Mertesacker, Hector Bellerin, and Rob Holding. Although depending on Mertesacker's injury, I know it's only to the head, but if he's available for the next one, I might swap him out. But that's where I'm going for the defensive side of things, simply because I think Arsenal have got a pretty tight defence. I mean, the goal they conceded in the Community Shield at the weekend was, I would say, against the run of play, especially is only just from half time, so they probably got caught out slightly. I think they had a very good defence last term, so I think, yes, it's risky, because if they concede, then that's all my clean sheet potential gone for the week. But I think if they do give a clean sheet, it's going to be, dare I say, a masterstroke. But, so yeah, straight to the midfield. I've got 5 in my midfield. Got Kevin De Bruyne from Manchester City. He was the top assist maker last season. I can only see him replicating that form in this campaign. And then I've got Paul Pogba for Manchester United, as I will discuss when we go into our season preview a bit later on. I think that with Matic's arrival, he will then Pogba will be freer to set Lukaku up for more goals. Christian Eriksen for Tottenham. I saw the Spurs-Juventus friendly at the weekend at Wembley. He was inspirational really. He was one of their best players by a mile. Probably with Dele Alli and Harry Kane, not one of the most touted top Tottenham players, but he's still very good and he's still up there in terms of making assists. Tom Ince from Huddersfield, sort of the wild card because we're running out of money and we have to get someone. He was, I think, Derby's top goal scorer last season, and they did decently. So, I don't think Huddersfield are going to do particularly well, but maybe kind of like Sunderland, he might be their shining light. And rounding off the midfielders, Dele Alli, like I said, with Christian Eriksen. Those two very strong for Tottenham. Dele Alli, I think, got 18 goals last season, which was, I think, 4th or 5th highest. Well, it might even be 6th, which is incredible for someone of his age and his position. And up front, I've got Jermaine Defoe for Bournemouth, who, if he can combine with Josh King and the other Bournemouth players to emulate the form that he showed at Sunderland, I think that Bournemouth, with him, are going to do very, very well. And then Sergio Aguero for Man City. I think he was third top scorer, fourth top scorer. I think he was, and obviously they've strengthened. So yeah, that's where I'm going. And my captain's going to be within my transfers for this week, so I'll talk about that next week.
Interesting.
Ooh, okay. Right, so I'll go on to mine. So in goal, I've gone for kind of a risky pick, but kind of calculated risk, I hope, in Fraser Forster. He's an excellent goalkeeper, and Southampton are usually a very solid team. I don't think their first game is too difficult. They're playing against Swansea at home, and I mean, I don't back Swansea to be particularly high scoring, so I'm hoping Fraser Forster will keep a clean sheet. I'm the only one out of the 4 of us that's gone for 4 in defence. I've gone for Ashley Williams, again, because I believe Everton have a reasonably comfortable first game, and I think they've actually got a very strong squad. They're playing against Stoke, who have brought in Eric Maxim Choupo-Moting, but have also lost the likes of Marko Arnautovic, and they didn't exactly have a huge amount of firepower anyway. So I'm hoping he'll do a job. Antonio Valencia, who I think is probably going to be something of a mainstay in my team, because I just think he's a brilliant right back, and he's got an amazing cross on him, so I'm hoping he'll not only keep a few clean sheets, but also get a couple of assists for me. One that Chris and Josh have kind of ripped into me a little bit for is my inclusion of Nicolas Otamendi from Manchester City, who aren't known for having the most solid defence in the world, obviously. But Otamendi's one of those dark horses in sort of fantasy football that tends to sort of work with whatever algorithm and point system they get. And I think he was the third or fourth highest scoring defender last year in terms of points. So I've put him in as basically a hopeful punt in the dark of somebody that will continue to do the same. I've put Nathan Ake from Bournemouth in. Again, I believe they have a fairly comfortable first game as well. They're playing against West Brom away, and again, West Brom don't score a huge amount of goals, so I'm hoping he'll be able to maybe keep a clean sheet. He's also a very talented defender who likes a headed goal. He's got a couple in pre-season, so that's why I've brought him in as well. In midfield, I've got Coutinho, Mane and Salah, because I'm biased, and Davy Klaassen because I'm slightly unbiased. Mane and Salah I've put in because they're basically forwards, and for midfielders, I think they'll get a lot of goals and assists, and hopefully a lot of points comparatively to other midfielders, because they'll play up top in Liverpool's 4-3-3 system, I'd imagine. Coutinho hopefully will be playing for Liverpool on Saturday and for a few more Saturdays to come. But obviously that remains to be seen. I've put him in there because if he is playing, he's always a danger for goals and assists, especially his link-up play with Mohamed Salah in pre-season has been fantastic. And I've put Davy Klaassen in as well because I haven't seen too much of him. I've only seen what I've managed to see on YouTube. I'm not a huge watcher of the Eredivisie, so I haven't seen too much of what he did in Holland. But I mean, he was the captain of a pretty strong Ajax team, one that got to the Europa League final. So I'm hoping he might pop up with a few goals and assists as well. And up front, because I had a fair bit of money left over, I've got Alexis Sanchez because he gets goals, he gets assists. I'm hoping with the addition of Alexandre Lacazette into the Arsenal team, he'll do a bit of a job up front. And then also up front, I've got my captain, Sergio Aguero, because he's a goal-scoring machine when he stays fit, and especially for the first game week, he's playing against Brighton and Hove Albion. And I think Brighton and Hove Albion versus arguably the best attacking team in the league is going to be something of a baptism of fire for them. So I'm backing Aguero to at least grab a goal or two in that. So yeah, that's pretty much my fantasy I team done. Like we say, the instructions were earlier in the video. I'm sure Josh can put them up again if I'm feeling really mean and making him do more editing now. And just a reminder that this is on both Android and iPhone, so you can join whatever phone you have, unless it's a Nokia 3310.
Damn!
Curses. So yeah, if you want to join, please feel free. It should be super fun. We're going to be continuing to update our teams, like we say, every week. And yeah, hopefully we'll see some of you guys there. And next up, we're going to be talking about our Premier League table predictions.
So yes, as Alex said, we're now moving on to our Premier League table preview. We're going to start off with who we think are going to win the league, and I think there are going to be some slightly controversial choices depending on which of the three of us you ask. But we are going to start with Alex, and if he doesn't say Manchester United, he's going to be kicked out of the call. So, Alex, who have you gone for?
Oh, I don't want to be kicked out the call. At the risk of, being kicked out the call, I haven't got Manchester United. My deepest apologies, but I have actually backed Chelsea to maintain their title, which I actually really struggle with this because I don't think Alvaro Morata is going to be as good as Diego Costa. I don't think they've improved their striker position by any means, if Diego Costa, of course, does leave. But Chelsea are just so... Chelsea, for me, have something that none of the other teams in the league have, which is an in-depth, very, very solid backline. Like, I don't think any of the other teams... If Chelsea take an injury, I think they'll be okay, but the other teams in the league, I think, will struggle. I think just having that strength and depth there, and then obviously the creativity they have going forward with the likes of Pedro, with the likes of Eden Hazard, but for every reason they had last year that they won with, I just can see them doing the same thing again. And they're not one of those teams that have a style that you figure out their style, then you can counter it, like many teams managed to do with Liverpool last year. You can figure out Chelsea's style, but they're still so solid that they're difficult to beat. And for that reason, for the same reasons they won last year, I just can see them defending the title again.
All right, Chris?
Well, you're going to be pleased with me here, Josh. I've gone for Man United to finish as champions because...
Hugo agrees.
Yeah, sorry about him. But... Shut up. But no, Man United, I feel like, especially signing Matic, Lindelof, Lukaku, these are all sort of final pieces of the Mourinho puzzle. I feel like Man United were massively underperforming last season with the multiple draws they ended up getting, especially at home. I feel like Paul Pogba will definitely have improved this season because now it's Neymar who's got to have the burden of being the world record signing. The other defenders I already spoke about, Eric Bailly being very solid if he stays fit. Even the likes of Daley Blind and Marcus Rojo are pretty solid choices. I've spoken about David De Gea being, in my opinion, the best keeper in the league. And now, of course, they've got Lukaku up front, which I feel, because there's still talk that Ibrahimovic may return, but I don't think it will happen. So Lukaku is a pretty solid choice to replace him. And they do have other midfield players who can pop up with goals as well, like Mata and Mkhitaryan. So I've gone for United to finish top.
Well, I'm probably going to surprise both of you here in saying that I think that Huddersfield are going to win the league.
Oh, wow. Jorgensen for PFA Player of the Year.
They're going to win the championship next season.
I told you guys, Tom Ince. No, I have to go for United. That's Manchester and not any of the other Uniteds. Newcastle.
West Ham.
The reason being...
Hey, West Ham feel all right.
The reason being, I think, Alex, you alluded to squad depth that Chelsea have in defence. United potentially don't have as good starting defence, but I think in terms of the entire squad, they've got so many players that they could pick from. Like even in goal, you've got either De Gea or Romero, both extremely competent goalkeepers. In defence, you've got Lindelof and Bailly, who are probably going to be the starting centre-back partnership, and then you've probably got Valencia and one of Shaw and Darmian. You've also got Smalling and Jones, who they're not the best in the league, but they're still half decent. Then you've got Rojo and Blint as well. Then in midfield, you've got obviously new signing Matic, who, as I said before, is probably going to enable Pogba to start feeding more goals into another new signing, Lukaku. Then there's Herrera, Mata, Lingard, Carrick, the new captain, Ashley Young. And then on the wing, we've got Rashford, Martial, Mkhitaryan. And up front, obviously, there is Lukaku, and also Rashford can play up front as well if need be. Alongside that, there is, as you mentioned, Chris, the potential of Zlatan returning. I think United would need another reinforcement up front. If that is Zlatan, then great. But if not, I think there is someone else that would need to come in to really cement the title charge. I also don't think United or any of the English teams are going to have the best Champions League campaigns. I think United may exit at the round of 16 stage. Therefore, with that huge squad depth, it'll be really good to see United branching out, using all their players as the season progresses, mostly in the Premier League and also in the two cup competitions. So that's why I've gone for United. And also, one last thing, actually.
It's not quite done.
No, I just remembered it. Alex, you've often mentioned that Lukaku only scored for Everton, or mostly scored for Everton when they were already winning. That's actually really helpful for United, because we had a lot of draws last season. So if we can turn a lot more of those draws into wins, then I think, 15, 20 points more than last season, which is well within chance of a title push. So that's why I've gone for that. So we're now moving on to see who we think will make up the rest of the top four. Going to go back to you, Alex, again. So we'll go. You can just do second, third, and fourth in one go. So who do you think is going to complete the top four this season?
I don't like this bit because this bit makes me sad. Because regrettably, my beloved Liverpool, I do not have in this list, which is sad.
Don't worry,
I've gone for what I would imagine is very similar to what you guys have, except you have United, obviously, as top. And I've gone for Manchester City in second, I've gone for Spurs in third, and Manchester United in fourth. The reason I've gone for City in second is because they have beefed up their defence a little bit in the sense that they've got some fullbacks. I would have put them top if I thought they had more defensive security in the middle, in the centre-back positions, but they don't. And I think the reason that I've put them so high is because they do have an all-right defence, but their midfield and attack is frighteningly good. They've got such unbelievable firepower up top, and I think they actually underperformed last year. So I think if they keep Aguero fit for a whole season, which is a big if, it'll be huge. If not, they have Gabriel Jesus, who I think is a very, very capable backup, and I think Kevin De Bruyne will have an unbelievable season. If I had to pick somebody who I thought was going to be PFA Player of the Year at this current point in time, it probably would be him. So I think they're going to do a really good job. Spurs, I think, are going to keep sort of rolling along as they are. They haven't made too many changes to their squad, but in many ways, I don't think they needed to. They still have probably the Premier League's most prolific striker. Well, statistically, the Premier League's most prolific striker up front, alongside the Premier League's most prolific attacking midfielder as well. I think Christian Eriksen is brilliant, and should they obviously, again, keep all of their back four fit, I think they're the only team that are anywhere near Chelsea in terms of defensive security, with Tonkin and Alderweireld being as quality as they are. Obviously, the loss of Kyle Walker and then the injury of Kieran Trippier is a big issue for them. I might have put them second if not for that, but should they bring in a capable right-back replacement, I think they'll do all right. And I've put Manchester United fourth. I initially actually had them outside the top four, but then decided having Liverpool above Manchester United would just be blatant bias without any hint of logic. The reason I did initially have Liverpool above United was because I think that Liverpool and United both have not necessarily the strongest defence and then a slightly better attack. And I initially thought, Liverpool's attack is better than United's, which I still maintain is the case. So Liverpool will be higher. But I didn't really think that much about United's defence and how poor Liverpool's defence is. And I think United's defence is that much better than Liverpool's when you talk about the first team. I agree with something Chris said earlier. In particular, I think Eric Bailly is excellent. Should you keep him fit, you're unfortunate to lose him at the start of last season. He'll be brilliant, and I don't know whether Lindelof will be good. If he is, great, you'll do a great job. And your full-backs, you do have a bit of security there. I don't think United's attack is that great. I think Paul Pogba, as I said many times last year, gets a much worse rap than he deserves. I think he's brilliant, and with somebody who spurns less opportunities than Zlatan, as well as he did miss a lot of chances. I think Lukaku will miss less of those, and I think that perhaps that combination will be very key. But you talked a lot about Martial and Rashford and the players you've got in midfield. I don't think your midfield and attack is that necessarily that massively strong, especially when you compare it to the likes of Manchester City. But it's good enough that it'll get you the goals. And should you keep your back four fit, you'll be absolutely fine in defence as well. And of course, De Gea is the best keeper in the league. So I back Manchester United to take that fourth position.
Okay, Chris?
Well, I've gone for your Manchester neighbours to finish second, and then similarly to Alex, Spurs in third, and I've actually got Chelsea as fourth place finishers. Man City, I feel like with the amount of money they've now spent on defensive acquisitions, for one, bringing in Edison from Benfica, Kyle Walker, Danilo, and Benjamin Mendy, they've certainly improved half of their defensive back line. I still think their centre-backs are not as strong as they could be. So that'll probably hamper them in that final league push, but they have the striking options to sort of balance that out and get in front. It doesn't matter how many goals you concede, so long as you score more. As for Spurs, I feel like Kyle Walker is a massive loss, but then they still have the players elsewhere on the pitch that can contribute goals and assists and whatnot. But I feel like Kieran Trippier picking up his injury is a massive blow for them, seeing as they've lost Walker. I don't know how serious the injury is, but their only real other right-back option now is Kyle Walker-Peters, a Spurs youth product who's not really that proven. But then again, right-back, I may get a bit of stick for this. It's not the most important position on the pitch. And of course, they've got Harry Kane, like I said earlier, 2 golden boots 2 seasons in a row. Bearing in mind, last season he still managed to win it despite being out for 3 months with an ankle injury. I think it was an ankle injury. That speaks volumes. As for Chelsea, I don't think, like Alex, they'll be able to maintain their title purely because it's looking ever more likely that Diego Costa will leave, and I don't think Alvaro Morata is the right choice to replace him. That's not to say that Chelsea don't have other players who can score. There's obviously Eden Hazard, Pedro, Willian, all these players. I feel like Matic is a massive loss for them, though, especially alongside N'Golo Kante. They were very solid in as the defensive midfield pairing. But if Chelsea end up playing anywhere near like they did in the Community Shield, where they lost to Arsenal, they will definitely get top 4, but not a title challenge, in my opinion.
I'm going to have to echo virtually everything you said there, Chris. I've got the exact same order for my top 4. I'll start off with...
Great minds.
Yeah, indeed. I'll start off with
Or equally shit ones.
Says a Liverpool fan.
I don't have a horse in this race. I've got us outside top 4 as well, so...
I'll start off with Manchester City in second. I think Guardiola's repeated the mistake from last season in signing a keeper that is not used to a climate anything like the Premier League. He's going to take time to adjust. How long that will take we don't know. I think Bravo's still adjusting, to be honest with you. Therefore, to have Edison, who's relatively young, relatively inexperienced, especially when it comes to half-decent leagues, and then to have Bravo as the backup in case Edison is underperforming is quite odd. Especially when, not that I'm Joe Hart's biggest fan, but to send him on loan when you've got Claudio Bravo warming up the bench, it once again seems a bit strange. I think they've brought in too many defensive reinforcements in one go. I think it's going to take time for that defence to gel properly. Vincent Kompany's incredibly injury prone, and his fitness will be the key to how high Man City do finish this season. And Kevin De Bruyne, what can I say? Alex alluded to it. He was the top assist maker last season in the Premier League. He's going to keep feeding Sergio Aguero, who's going to be right up there with the top goal scorers once again. And you got Kyle Walker, who I don't think not that anyone does, but I don't think he's worth 50 million. I wouldn't have even brought him in. I know that he's a Guardiola type of player, but as I'll talk about with Spurs in a second, I just don't think that he is as good as perhaps the price tag justifies. And moving on to Tottenham though, and sticking with that right back position, as I said before, I was at the Spurs Juve game at the weekend. Kieran Trippier, apart from when he went off injured, was phenomenal. He was, chasing back. He's not quick as Kyle Walker, but he was chasing the Juventus strikers, tracking them back, putting some really good tackles in. He gets forward as well. He's got a few assists, I remember last season, more than Kyle Walker, if you're talking about that right back that's going up and down the pitch. Harry Kane, obviously top scorer with 29 goals, which I think was the highest in a number of years, if I remember correctly. I don't think any striker's got 30 since Van Persie. And then there's Christian Eriksen, who was the second top assist maker in their Premier League with 15. The only thing I have with Tottenham, the only issue I have with Tottenham is they haven't strengthened yet. And a bit like the mistake that Man City made in the 12-13 season when they just won the league, they didn't bring anyone really apart from Jack Rodwell, which is negligible. And all the teams around them are strengthening. I mean, Chelsea's additions may be slightly questionable, but the teams around them are strengthening severely. So for Tottenham, despite having an incredibly strong squad, not to build upon that might see them slip one place down the table, which leaves me with fourth place at Chelsea. I'm going to say that, well, there's a statistic that no team since United in 2006-7 to 2008-9 has retained the title. And I think there's a reason for that. That's because there's a lot more at stake. There's a lot more competitions that have got more importance these days. I think there's a lot more teams challenging for the title. It's not just a 2-horse race or a 4-horse race. Often it's a 6-horse race. And I don't think, as Chris said, letting Diego Costa go is a huge mistake. I don't quite know what Antonio Conte is doing. If you think about the controversial characters in the past, like Eric Cantona, as we spoke about before, was inspirational for not just the teams that he played in for Manchester United, but the teams that went on to be after he left. Luis Suarez, probably the most controversial character in Premier League history. He single-handedly nearly guided Liverpool to the title with his 31 goals. And Alvaro Morata I just don't rate him at all. And I've got the statistic here that Diego Costa, who was the league's joint fourth top scorer last season with 20, his goals to game ratio since 2014 was 0.58, and Morata's is 0.34 with the same amount of games played in the league. So I think that does speak huge volumes as to why Conte is making a huge mistake in letting Diego Costa go and replacing him with Alvaro Morata.
And that's also taking into account the season where Chelsea finished 10th as well.
Yeah.
A season where none of their team was firing, so that's something else to bear in mind.
Plus, you only have to look at Morata's attempt at a penalty in the Community Shield. Yeah. I mean, that was almost as bad as Courtois.
It honestly looked like Courtois was either preparing for a goal kick or a penalty in rugby. One of the two.
I feel like that ball may still be in orbit, but we'll see.
Anyway,
that certainly rounds off our top 4 predictions. But moving on now to who we think is going to complete the rest of the top half of this season's Premier League table. So that's from 5th to 10th. Once again, Alex will kick this segment off with you. So if you'd just like to talk us through who you've gone for.
I'll reel it off. I'll try and keep it reasonably short and sweet after I talk about my beloved Liverpool. My prediction for Liverpool is very conditional based on a number of things. If we keep Coutinho, which is still a very big if, and if we sign Virgil van Dijk, which of course is still a very big if. Both these things are pretty key for us because Coutinho is our main sort of playmaker. He's so much of our play goes to him. People who say he's just a long shot merchant haven't bothered to watch a Liverpool game in the last year because so much of our play goes to him, especially when he's pushed back to that centre midfield role. So a lot of our creativity is going to be based on whether he stays or not. And the reason I've actually placed Liverpool in 5th outside the top 4 is because I don't think we've strengthened our defence enough. Our defence was obviously, for the last few seasons, our main problem. As a matter of fact, I think I'd go as far to say our main strength in our defence is our league goalkeeper, who in fairness, despite all the criticism, I actually think Mignolet has had a very good season last year with sort of the competition he's going to be having with Karius. I think he'll be reasonably solid this year, but the defence in front of him isn't that great. I think Klein's all right. I don't think he's great. I think he's all right. Robertson, our new left-back signing from Hull, has looked pretty good in pre-season, but you never know too much from pre-season, as Liverpool show, because they always do well in pre-season and then totally screw up the Premier League. I think Matip's, again, all right, and Lovren is totally inconsistent. We don't have a solid defense. We don't have that solid backing that the teams I put in the top 4 do. And as much as our attack is electrifying, frightening, whatever word you want to put in it, one of the best attacks in the league, is that good enough to really sort out the defense? I'm not entirely sure. Solid midfield as well, but again, nothing hugely special, which is why. And I just think the other teams are so strong. I don't think it's weakness on Liverpool's part necessarily. I think it's strength in the other teams that I've placed them outside the top 4. And I've got Arsenal in 6 just because I think they've strengthened in the wrong areas. I think Lacazette is a very good signing. If they keep Sanchez, him and Lacazette are going to be pretty decent together. But again, I don't think they've got a particularly strong defence. And I think their midfield out of the top 6 is by far the weakest. I've said it so many times. Any team with Coquelin in it as a starting player should not be challenging for any kind of silverware whatsoever. And I don't even think they'll make the top 4. So that rounds off my top 6, and I'll sort of reel off the rest of them reasonably quickly. I've got Everton in 7th. They've made some very good signings like a Pickford, Keane, David Klaassen. I think they've strengthened in a lot of areas. The reason I've placed them in 7th as opposed to maybe challenging for top 6 is just because I don't think they've done a particularly sufficient job of replacing Lukaku. I don't think Sandro is a suitable replacement. So I think they might struggle for goals. In 8th, I've got West Ham, who have also been very, very active in this transfer window. Recently signed Marko Arnautovic, who I think is a very good player. They've also signed Chicharito, who at least for one season is going to be, until he starts to slow down, he's going to be a 15-goal at least a season striker, and that is huge for any team in the Premier League. If you have that sort of security, it's a really big thing. And obviously the signing of Joe Hart could go one way, could go the other, but at the very least it will create a bit of competition for the likes of Adrian. So I think that West Ham will be a massive improvement on last year. In 9th, I've got Southampton, sort of seem to be around that 9th, 10th, 11th area every single year. And if they keep Virgil van Dijk, which I'm not sure they will, if they play Virgil van Dijk if he stays, I think it could be quite big for them. But I just think they've got the likes of Tadic and players like that around the pitch who can create the chances that you kind of need in order to just maintain that mid-table level. And just rounding off my top 10 is Bournemouth, who are always improving. I've been really impressed with them. Obviously, I'm a big fan of Bournemouth, have been for a while. Signing Nathan Ake on a permanent, really big deal, very good centre-back. Bringing in Jermaine Defoe to help put in the goals alongside Josh King, who had a very good back end of last season, is going to be very big as well. I mean, Defoe managed to single-handedly keep a very poor Sunderland side up in the Premier League, put into a decent side where there are other players creating the chances. I really think that Bournemouth could do a decent job. And I think should they bring in a suitable centre midfielder, a good creative centre midfielder, they may even finish higher. But again, that's an if, and we're trying to talk about what's happening now. So Bournemouth, for me, round off my top 10.
Okay, Chris, who's in your top 10?
Well, mine is very similar to Alex's, but a couple of places. I've also got Liverpool finishing 5th. Again, I'm just going to have to echo you. I feel like their defence has been their sort of Achilles heel over the last few seasons. I think Andrew Robertson is a good signing because he's a genuine left back, so now you don't have to play James Milner there.
James Milninho, come on.
But then you've already said Lovren is incredibly unreliable, and Matip, again, you signed him for free, which can only be a plus, except if it's a Liverpool defender.
Hey, Matip's all right. Come on,
man. Klein I quite like. I feel like he's fairly similar to Kyle Walker in that he likes to bomb up the wing and get a few crosses in, but then you've just got the problem with your goalkeepers. Mignolet had a decent season, and when he came in to replace Karius, had just been poor, hadn't settled in, similarly to Claudio Bravo. So I feel like Liverpool will be hampered by that still last season because they've not really signed any new defenders. And of course, Coutinho is looking more and more likely that he will leave. He may do, he may not, but we'll have to wait and see. I've also got Arsenal in 6th because, again, they've been very inconsistent recently. I feel like the pressure on Wenger as well to do well is also going to have a massive impact. And of course, there's, similarly to Coutinho, it is entirely possible that Sanchez could go, which would be an enormous blow for them. So again, that's an issue. Similarly to you, Everton in 7th, I feel like they've had a fantastic window, bringing in the likes of, well, you've said Michael Keane, David Klaassen. Wayne Rooney, I feel like, is an excellent signing, even though he's obviously not had the best few final years at United. Sandro, I feel like he is a decent replacement, but he's replacing an irreplaceable player, Lukaku. So we'll just have to wait and see on that front. This is where I differ from you. I've got Southampton in 8th and then West Ham in 9th because I feel like Manolo Gabbiadini is going to be a massive difference for Southampton. But then you also have to look at the Virgil van Dijk situation. He's now handed in a transfer request, so it's looking more and more likely he'll leave. West Ham in 9th, again, they've had a very good window, bringing in, Chicharito, Arnautovic, Hart on loan, and also Pablo Zabaleta, who I think is an excellent right back and a very good acquisition by them on a free. But then I just feel like West Ham may still have sort of cold feet about being at the London Stadium. So we'll just have to wait and see with them. And then in 10th, I've gone for Crystal Palace because I feel like they massively underperformed last season. Of course, they had their god-awful start under Alan Pardew. Then Big Sam came in and saved the day. I feel like Frank de Boer is a very good manager and he's been making pretty shrewd acquisitions, bringing in Ruben Loftus-Cheek, Jairo Wiedewald, and they're looking more likely that they're going to bring in Timothy Fosu-Mensah on loan. So I feel like Palace will have a pretty good season and just sneak into that top 10 spot.
Okay, well, I think it's quite the sort of consensus gone for the Arsenal, Everton, Liverpool combination to round off the top 7. It is Arsenal in 5th, and that's because I think the combination of Sanchez and Lacazette will be enough to cancel out any midfield or defensive issues that Arsenal may have. I think Sanchez, if he does stay, was the 3rd top scorer in the league last season with, 24 goals, and the 5th highest amount of assists with 10. Lacazette, despite obviously in the French league, which isn't as prestigious or as competitive, still bagged 28 goals in 30 league games, which is quite some record. So if that combination is going to be extremely powerful, but as you both alluded to, their defence, midfield isn't quite great, so that's probably where they're going to be let down. So they might be getting goals but conceding too many as well. I've gone for Everton in 6th.
You're actually deluded. You're actually deluded.
The reason I've said that is because, yes, they've lost Romelu Lukaku, who was the 2nd top scorer in the league, and his replacement might not be the best, but they've strengthened in defence with Michael Keane, who alongside, Phil Jagielka, Leighton Baines, I think that's quite a good defence.
Ashley Williams.
Oh yes, Ashley Williams too. Then there's David Klaassen, who's the sort of centre attacking mid, who was really inspirational in Ajax's season in the last campaign, obviously, with them reaching the Europa League final, and he's quite a, relatively speaking, prolific goal scorer as well. Wayne Rooney brought in, he's won pretty much everything there is to win in club football. He's got the experience. He's not brought in for his, I wouldn't say talent, but for what he can do on the pitch, more like what he can do off the pitch. I think he's going to be an incredible driving force behind this Everton squad, and I think he's going to be like an unofficial captain for this coming season. Liverpool, I've put in 7th. Hold your sort of protestations, please, Alex. The reason I've gone for this, I don't think that they have brought in enough talent, enough good Premier League players to warrant anything higher than 7th place, especially if Philippe Coutinho does leave. Because let's face it, if you're at Liverpool and Barcelona comes calling, you'd want to go.
Yeah, 100%.
Mohamed Salah, last time he was in the Premier League, was shockingly bad. He's done all right at Roma, but that's Roma, that's Syria, that's totally different. He has to readjust once again, which he failed to do last time out. Dominic Solanke, another signing who I'm not too sure about. Andy Robertson again from Hull, once again signing a defender from a relegated team is a bit of an iffy thing to do. I don't think there's much more to say about Liverpool there, really. I don't really rate them as a squad. Yes, they've got good defensive options, but I think they're almost like their defence is Arsenal and Arsenal's frailties, but extreme. So however bad Arsenal's defensive frailties are, Liverpool's are that times 10. West Ham I've got in 8th. I think, despite what Paul Merson says, I think Chicharito is the best signing of the campaign so far.
Sure, it's not Jonathan Walters.
I think I would have loved us to have signed him as not a substitute, but like as competition for Romelu Lukaku. I think he was inspirational in the one title-winning campaign he spent at United, which was his first at the club, where he was coming off the bench and putting in the goals left, right and centre. He would score when called upon. Marko Arnautovic, as you both have alluded to, was a fantastic signing from Stoke, and Stoke have definitely been weakened for losing him, and West Ham have easily been strengthened. Joe Hart, I'm not sure about, but I suppose for a team like West Ham, we can't do too much wrong. And obviously Pablo Zabaleta, good experience. He's won the Premier League twice. Great right-back option. Bournemouth in ninth, so they'll finish exactly where they were last season. Jermaine Defoe alongside Josh King. Jermaine Defoe was the only reason Sunderland didn't finish with a negative points, because he was just so good. So if you take his goals, put them into a team that can actually perform and that actually wants to win, I think you're going to see a lot of potentially top 5 Premier League goal scorers there for Jermaine Defoe alongside Josh King. You got Nathan Ake as well, Harry Arter as well. So I think Bournemouth have got a very good side going into the next season. And the Southampton in 10th, I think they're going to drop a couple of places from last season. I think this might be one managerial change too many for them. And I think, yes, they've got Gabbiadini, who got 4 and 11 in the league last season, which isn't bad. I'm not confident that they've got enough match winners to warrant anything higher than 10th place. They've not really brought anyone in this summer. They've let Jay Rodriguez go to West Brom. He didn't really do an awful lot in the last couple of seasons. I know he had spells on the sidelines, but I just don't see Southampton wowing us particularly this season. I think they'll be bang average. That rounds off our top 10. So we're now going to make the move down to the bottom half of the Premier League table, and we'll go from 11th up to the final place before relegation, so that's 11th to 17th. Alex, it's over to you once again.
Okay, and I said I'd keep the last one short and sweet. I'll try and keep this one even shorter and sweeter, because this is kind of the bit of the table that's limbo that no one really cares about. So I'll give you the highlights. I'll put Crystal Palace in 11th, so similarly to Chris. Echo all the things he said. They massively underperformed last season. If they manage to sign Mamadou Sakho from Liverpool on another loan or a permanent, which could well happen because Liverpool don't seem to want him, that would be a huge thing for them, and I think that's entirely possible. They've still got likes of Wilfried Zaha and Christian Benteke, who are very talented players, and I think that just having that kind of talent up front is enough to fire you. Definitely far clear of the relegation zone, so that's why I've got them 11th. Got West Brom in 12th. They were pretty solid last season. They're a Tony Pulis side. They're not going to be entertaining. They're not going to be fun. No one's going to want to watch any of their games, but they're going to grind out a few decent results. I think that'll be enough for them. I've got Newcastle in 13th, which I wasn't entirely sure about, but they are a Premier League pedigree club by nature. They've got a Premier League pedigree manager at the back of them. And I think that whilst I don't think they've been that great in the transfer window, they do have enough about them realistically to steer clear of relegation again. The likes of John Joe Shelby, who is a bit of a joke, but he is genuinely, it was very good for them last year. Dwight Gale, I think if he stays fit, I know personally as a Liverpool fan, can be very, very dangerous. So I think they'll do fine. Watford in 14th. They've got some decent players. They've got Troy Deeney, Pantillamon's a good goalkeeper, so is Aurelio Gomez. Me and Chris had the pleasure of watching Aston Villa versus West Brom, and they've also signed Watford. Sorry, yeah, Watford, and they've signed Chalobah from Chelsea, who was absolutely excellent in that game, and I think could be a really good player for them throughout the season. Burnley in 15th, got some decent firepower up front. You got likes of Sam Vokes, got likes of Andre Gray if he stays fit. Defoe, I still think could turn out to be a decent signing. Wasn't great for them last year, but still think he's a decently talented player. Don't think they'll have it as easy as last year with the loss of Michael Keane, but they still have Tom Heaton, who is a very good goalkeeper. So I think, again, that'll be enough to steer them clear of relegation. Got Leicester in 16th. They're still on this decline from the amazing season they had a couple of years ago. I think Jamie Vardy will have a slightly better season than he did last year. Be interesting to see where Mahrez ends up, because he has said very openly he wants to leave. But I just think that with the players they do have, they clearly do have some of the talent in the likes of Demarai Gray to maybe have enough just to steer them clear of relegation. And in that last spot before relegation, I have Stoke City. I know they signed Choupo-Moting, but I don't back Stoke at all. Never really have. They've also lost the best signing of the season, John Walters, devastatingly. And I just don't think Stoke have enough about them to really scare any teams. They might grind out a couple of results here and there, and they have an all right manager behind them, of course, but I think they'll stay clear of relegation, but I don't think they'll do it with any kind of ease whatsoever.
Okay, and Chris, who's sort of starting off your bottom half of the table?
I'm just going to preface this by saying this is going to be a very tight bottom half because I feel like we're in for an exciting season no matter what happens.
I think Chris does it like a tight bottom half, don't you?
If only I'd seen one.
Alright.
Anyway, we're kicking off this with I've got Newcastle in 11th because I feel like Rafa Benitez is an excellent manager, but Newcastle's problem is that they've just not been signing Premier League proven. Their new, I think he was a fullback, Florian Lejeune, that they signed from Eibar. I've heard that he's been pretty good in pre-season, but then pre-season doesn't count for much. Dwight Gale, I feel like Alex said, if he stays fit, he can be a pretty good Premier League striker. He was Newcastle's top scorer in the Championship last season. I think he may have been top scorer in the league. I can't remember exactly. But yeah, I feel like he's definitely going to be a key player for them. 12th, I've got Leicester because similarly to Alex, I think they're still on a bit of a sort of, well, that bubble's burst now from their Premier League winning season. And it's looking more and more likely that Mahrez will leave. I feel like he'll be a massive loss, but they still have the strikers and players elsewhere on the pitch to do relatively solidly. I've got Bournemouth in 13th because I feel like that one season last year was a bit of a fluke. I think Josh King probably won't replicate his goal-scoring form towards the back end of last year, but Jermaine Defoe is coming as well, so that might counterbalance it. I've got Swansea in 14th, but that's massively dependent on whether they keep Gylfi Sigurdsson. But then again, they've got the strikers to sort of balance that. I think Fernando Llorente had an excellent season last year. I think it was 14, 15 goals. And of course, they've now brought in Tammy Abraham on loan, who's in my fantasy team. So hopefully he can do the goods. And I feel like Swansea's defence is relatively solid as well. They have, I think Jordi Amat is a bit of an underrated centre-back when he gets played. And Marcus Olsen was very good when they brought him in from, I think it was Norwich. So, yeah, again, we'll just have to wait and see. 15th, Watford. Marcus Silva, I feel, was very unlucky getting relegated with Hull. So now he's got a sort of more cemented and structured team. I feel like he'll be able to survive. West Brom in 16th. Again, they had a bit of a fluky season last year, finishing, I think it was 10th. And they've just not really been improving in areas that they need to. Rondon had an off season last year, I think, but they're still clear of relegation. And then finally in 17th, I've got Burnley because, again, not really too much transfer activity going on apart from signing of the season John Walters. And like Alex said, I think Michael Keane is a massive loss for them. So even though they managed to keep so many points from home last season, they turned Turf Moor into a fortress. I feel like that's a massive loss for them, and they'll just survive by the skin of their teeth.
Because I think that Leicester are going to finish 11th. I think they're going to. I think they're going to do something very similar to last season, where they're going to start off incredibly poorly. Well, relatively speaking, it wasn't so much last season, but I think this season they're going to struggle. Craig Shakespeare will be lucky if I think he lasts until Christmas. I think they'll get someone else in. I think then they'll slowly climb back up the table and sit in around at the 11th position. They've also got very decent attacking options there. Obviously, Iheanacho, Vardy, Okazaki, Ojoa, Slimani.
I forgot about Iheanacho.
25 million.
And then I've got Stoke in 12th. I think they're just one of those teams that they're not excellent, they're not crap, they're somewhere in the middle. I think Mark Hughes is one of those managers that has his teams finishing in that sort of position in the table. Stoke are that sort of team that finishes in that position in the table. they've not lost anyone massive apart from Arnautovic, and I think
6'4", mate. What are you on about?
Oh, that's good.
I think Darren Fletcher's a good signing. He's got the experience behind him to keep Stoke going. He's a Premier League winner. Kurt Zouma, another good signing for Stoke in the heart of their defence. I think he's quite solid in the back. Moving on to West Brom in 13th, which is dropping 3 places from last season. Haven't really brought anyone decent in. They've let Darren Fletcher go. Only Jay Rodriguez has come in for them of any note. I don't think there's much more to say about that, really. They're not going to do anything particularly differently. It's just the teams around them, I think, are going to do slightly better. Burnley in 14th, I think, obviously, with their signing of the season. They've also got Charlie Taylor and Jack Cork, who are, decent players. They could do something good for them. I think Sean Dyche is building on a team that could push for the top 10 next season, provided they do stay up. Newcastle in 15th, without question the highest of the promoted teams. Like Chris and Alex both said, they've got Premier League pedigree manager. They've got a Premier League ready squad. I mean, they did win the championship by the skin of their teeth, admittedly, but I do think that they've got a squad that's going to go all guns blazing, certainly at the beginning of the season. I think they will. Obviously, I don't think they're going to wow us, but I think they're going to do enough to comfortably survive. Crystal Palace in 16th, which is quite different from both of you. Yeah, they've got Ruben Loftus-Cheek, Jaro Rudeveld, and also potentially Fosu Mensah coming in, which is, majority speaking, defensive reinforcements. They've got, obviously, Wilfried Zaha, Christian Benteke, who I think to be honest, they did perform reasonably well last season, and they still didn't do much. So I think I can't see that changing particularly. I don't know too much about Frank de Boer as a manager. I've not really seen his teams play, so I can't comment too much on that. But I think it's going to be a bit of a struggle once again for Crystal Palace. And then just surviving is going to be Swansea, I think. They've got Tammy Abraham, who was one of the Championship's best players last season and has been
23 goals for Bristol City, I think it was.
Thank you. Yeah, so he's been.
It's all right.
Yeah, he's been doing pretty well in the Championship. Swansea probably are at the same level as the Championship team, although I think, as we'll talk about later, I think the 3 teams below them are just worse. I think Paul Clement's going to have a really tough time. I just can't see them doing particularly much. I don't know why they're letting Bafétimbi Gomis go for good. Unless there's something that I've completely missed or forgotten about. I don't understand why he was on loan last season and why they've sold him this season. I think he's a great player. He's tall, he's powerful, probably like a not as good Romelu Lukaku in many ways. So why they had him on their books and let him go is a bit mysterious to me. But I think they'll survive, but just. So we'll move on now to relegation. Okay, so rounding off our Premier League table predictions is, of course, the relegation battle. And I think out of a process of elimination, we know at least 2 of the 3 teams that the 3 of us have all gone for. I think, I'm going to guess it's 18th place that we've all got our discrepancies. So once again, Alex, over to you.
Yes.
So again, by process of elimination, my 18th place is Swansea City. And there are a few things I had to take into note here. I know I said earlier something about doing the predictions as they are, not as I think they will be. But I've kind of thrown that out the window a little bit with Swansea because I am resigned to the fact that I'm pretty certain they're going to lose Gylfi Sigurdsson. And I think he's so key for them. He gets a lot of their goals and a lot of their assists. He's very high up on both those charts. Unlike Chris, I don't rate their defensive goalkeeper. I don't think there's anybody of note in the Swansea defence that I particularly think is a real strength for them, something that could, keep them up. So if they do lose Gylfi Sigurdsson, there are only really 2 players in that team that I think, these are the players that have a chance to keep them up. That's Fernando Llorente and that's Tammy Abraham. And for me, Tammy Abraham, yes, he's done it in the lower leagues, but he something has made Chelsea let him go again. I know they have other options, but I mean, the fact that he's still not on their books to me suggests that he's perhaps still not quite Premier League ready. And he could pop up with 15 goals, but I'm not entirely sure he will. And that leaves Fernando Llorente, who did have a very good season last year, but he's aging, he's getting slower, he's getting less physical. and that physical side of his game, that strength, that ability to outjump other defenders, score headers, is such a big part of his game. And as he does age, that's going to diminish. So as much as he's a clinical finisher, I'm not sure how many chances he's going to get, especially if the chances with Gylfi Sigurdsson are taken away. So I think Swansea are really going to struggle. And that leads us into 19th and 20th, which I think there's going to be a bit of consensus on. And in 19th, I've got Bottle and Hove Albion, who, for me, haven't strengthened nearly enough. I think that their key player last year was Anthony Knocker. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, something like that. Anthony Knocker or whatever it is. And he already had, this is deja vu for him. He was the Championship Player of the Year, I believe, or at least Leicester's Player of the Year when they came up into the Premier League, and then never, ever performed to that level in the Premier League again. He's obviously a little bit older now. He's got a little bit more experience. So it'll be interesting to see whether he comes out with a bit of a point to prove. But for me, their star man doesn't have a history of doing a very good job in the Premier League with more than one opportunity. So that's going to struggle for me. And off the top of my head, have they brought in anyone of note, really?
Not really.
At all?
Don't
No.
think so.
And I mean, they're a team that they did well in Championship, but doing well in Championship and then barely strengthening is not good enough to stay in the Premier League. So I've got them 19th. And I've got Huddersfield in 20th, which kind of is a bit of a cop-out easy pick because obviously they're the playoff winners, so they're naturally going to be the weakest team. They have strengthened a little bit. I was impressed that they got Moy on a permanent. I think he's a good player. I think that Jorgensen, we've talked about him before, could be a good signing, but you never really know when you're signing young defenders from other random leagues. I think he was in the Danish league.
He was from FC Copenhagen.
Copenhagen, yeah. So he could be a shrewd signing, but we don't know. He's unproven. And the rest of that team, for me, there's nobody in there that I think they're the only team that I can think of that do not have any players that I think even really have a remote chance of being that player that can keep them up from relegation. If Knockout finds form for Brighton, which I don't think he will, but if he does, he could be that player. I don't think there's anyone in that Huddersfield team that I really think he's the player that could keep them up from relegation. And I think every other team has one of those. So for me, that lack of any kind of spark, that lack of any star men really whatsoever is why, for me, Huddersfield will finish rock bottom of the Premier League.
I think we're going to hear something similar from you, Chris, but we'll let you have your time to shine anyway.
Yeah, definitely the similar 19th and 20th. I've gone for a bit of a gamble here with my 18th place finishes, and that is actually Stoke. Because I feel like Mark Hughes is probably the manager with the lowest job security in the Premier League right now. Stoke had an awful end to last season. They ended up winning, I think it was 4 games in their last 17. So that's not exactly good going into this year. I feel like he may well be the first to be sacked. And then whoever Stoke bring in, I don't think will really do a good job of keeping them up. Because, of course, Arnautovic is a massive loss. And then looking
John
at
Walters.
that Stoke, of course, John Walters, Phil Bardsley as well. Oh, watch out. But no, I feel like the striking options. Peter Crouch is sort of winding down his career now. Saido Berahino, I do not rate in the slightest.
Crouch has been winding it down his career for like the last decade.
The only real player of note in that Stoke side is Xherdan Shaqiri, and if he does well, I feel like he'll probably leave in January due to the Stoke's lack of ambition over the recent years. And then similarly to Alex, I've got you can thank that fantastic nickname Bottle and Hove Albion. You can thank Jack Grealish for that.
You can't thank it for much else, though, can you really?
And then Huddersfield, obviously last bottom of the table. I'm going to sort of bunch them together because they've had a similar problem with this window. They've been making a lot of signings, the pair of them, but they've not been signing Premier League proven. They've just been sort of scouring other leagues across Europe and bringing in maybe players. Matthias Jorgensen, for example, may be good enough. Just one that comes to mind is Davy Proper, who Brighton brought in, I think it was yesterday. Again, a maybe player from, I think it was PSV. Alesh Mateu, who they signed from Sparta Prague, I think it was. Again, maybe player, not proven. So I feel like that's really going to hamper them. Knockout and, he's had his chance in the Premier League with Leicester, didn't perform. It's probably going to be, like Alex said, deja vu. And Huddersfield bringing in, the only real one player of note who's had experience in the Premier League that comes to mind at least is Tom Ince, and again he wasn't really setting the league right, despite Josh's protestations earlier. But yeah, I feel like Huddersfield will just be going straight back down, and it'll be a short Premier League stay for them.
Okay, well, quite differently to both of you, have got Watford in 18th. I think once again they've changed manager. I don't think they're going to be immune to this managerial change. Much like with Southampton, but to more of an extent, I think they're going to suffer from this one managerial change too many. I don't think they've brought enough players. I mean, they've bloody signed Tom Cleverley, which on principle means they should go down. They've not really sold anyone. They've not really got rid of anyone, which makes you think they don't think that squad needs a clear out. And considering they survived by the skin of their teeth last season, suggests that they do. I don't think that Matsuri deserves to get the sack, but hey ho. I think Marco
It wasn't quite by the skin of their teeth. They were 6 points clear, but then they ended up losing their last 6 games. They hit the 40-point mark and then lost all the rest. So
in other words, by the skin of their teeth. I think Marco Silva, yes, he did well with Hull when he was brought in. I still don't think he's good enough to keep them up. So I think Watford are going to go back in the Championship. Huddersfield for 19th. I think.
Ooh.
As your notes showed when you sort of flashed them on the screen.
Thank you.
Tom Ince to keep Huddersfield in 19.
I think that out of them and Brighton, they have more players of a Premier League calibre. I think that they've strengthened more. Yes, they've brought in a whole host of players, probably a whole squad's worth. But I do think that they have brought more and better players in than Brighton. Obviously, they have got Tom Ince, Laurent Depoitre and Steve Mooney. And then obviously Brighton, bottom of the table. One thing I will say, they've brought in keeper Matthew Ryan, who I've got an issue with for 2 reasons. Firstly, because he spells his name with 1 T. And secondly, because he's only played 27 league games in the last 2 seasons, which for a team that's going to be battling relegation probably from the off. And also from the point of view that he's probably going to be playing every single game. It's going to be... I mean, keepers that need the massive amount of energy, but even in terms of match experience, I think it's a bit strange.
I think that.
So I've not finished yet. So,
sorry.
That's all right.
Wow.
So I think Brighton, certainly out of the 3 Premier League teams, are going to struggle the most. I think Chris Hughton's got a huge task on his hands in keeping them up. I think he probably will stay on board if they get relegated. I just don't think Brighton strike me as a team that would sack him immediately anyway. Certainly without good reason they wouldn't. So I think for those reasons it's going to be Huddersfield and Brighton in the bottom 2 for sure.
Yeah, all I was going to say was that, just going back to the goalkeeper situation, I think that Brighton was stupid to let David Stockdale go, because he was pretty much insane, bar that final game, of course.
Yeah, that one mistake.
That one mistake that cost them the league. So it may have just been a bit bitter from Brighton, really. But
like when you lose a couple of Ultimate Team games, you sell your entire team. It's definitely the game, and it's not you.
Yeah. Just like this Matthew Ryan kid, it's definitely going to be how his name's spelt that impacts how he performs.
Well, it upset me. I thought, that's not right. No, I'm not having this.
And for that, you're not allowed a second season in the Prem.
Well, that rounds off our Premier League table predictions. Just want to... Something I should have mentioned at the beginning of this segment is that at the end of the season, we are going to have a look at who we went for, and we are going to have a lovely forfeit for whoever has really been outraged.
Wrong.
Yeah. So there's not much more to say about that, really. We'll probably readdress this around January time, see how our predictions have got on. Obviously, we're not going to change them, just see what the hell they're doing, and once again at the end of the season.
And just to round off this behemoth of an episode, we're just going to quickly give our score predictions for the upcoming weekend's fixtures. And we're going to sort of keep this as another sort of mini league almost. So we'll get 3 points if we get the score right. We'll get 1 point if the result's right, and obviously none if we're completely wrong. So we'll start off with the first game of the Premier League, which is on Friday the 11th, and that's Arsenal hosting Leicester. So, Josh, I'll come to you first. What do you reckon the score will be?
2-0 Arsenal.
Okay. And Alex?
3-0 Arsenal.
Oh, 3-0. I think it'll be 2-1 Arsenal, personally. And then we come to the first Saturday of the league, so we've got a lot of fixtures here. We'll start off with Watford-Liverpool.
So Liverpool just to win it 2-1.
Liverpool just to win it 2-1.
I've got Liverpool to comfortably win it 3-1, so
Fair enough.
Everton-Stoke next.
So I think that'll be Everton 2-0 win.
Everton 1-0 win.
Everton 2-0 win. I'll have to confer with Josh. Crystal Palace hosting Huddersfield.
So I think that'll be 1-0.
Ooh, first discrepancy in results. I've got 2-1 Crystal Palace.
Yeah, so have I. I don't think Huddersfield will get off with any points at all, really, for a number of games. Southampton hosting Swansea, pretty even, I think. But what do you guys think?
I think it's going to be actually a Southampton 3-1 win, quite comfortably.
Oh,
Similar result, different score. I've got 1-0 Southampton.
I've got 1-1 because I actually think that Van Dijk will potentially leave before that game, but we'll have to wait and see. West Brom hosting Bournemouth. What do you think of that?
1-0.
Draw written all over it, 1-1.
Yeah, 1-1.
West Brom draw every
West
week.
Brom draw every single time. Chelsea hosting Burnley. Bit of a tough start for Burnley, but what do you think?
I can't see Chelsea grabbing many goals. 1-0 Chelsea.
Ooh, I've gone different. I said 3-0 Chelsea.
I've said 2-0, so we're all hating on the signing of the season's new club, but
John Wall, change it. 3-0 Burnley. John Waller's hat-trick.
John Walter's hat trick.
Of own goals, 3-0 Chelsea.
Yes, that's right.
Similarly to Huddersfield, a bit of a tough sort of, like Alex said, baptism of fire, hosting Man City on the opening day. What do you think of that?
Not sure about City's defence, so 3-1 City.
I've got 4-1 City.
Oh, I've gone for 2-0 City. So sorry, Brighton, you're screwed.
Because we said so.
Newcastle hosting Spurs. I will just preface that last time that happened, Newcastle beat Spurs 5-1 despite already being relegated. So how times have changed.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be the same thing. I think it's going to be a 3-0 win for Spurs.
Well, I've gone very different. I actually think Newcastle, first game back in the Premier League, won't give up that easily. I think it's going to be 2-2.
I've gone for a 2-1 win for Spurs, actually. And the final game of the weekend, Josh's very own Man United hosting West Ham.
Yes, on my dear mother's birthday. It's going to be a 2-0 win for United, I reckon.
I've gone for a 2-1 United.
Yeah, so have I. I feel like one of
Chicharito's going to score.
One of West Ham's new signings will score.
Chicharito's going to score.
That rounds off our Premier League preview. We hope you stuck around for this long with us irritating folk. But
Speak for yourself.
One irritating folk and 2 partisans, pundits and pals.
Yeah, and 1 people's presenter.
You've got another 8 months of us to come, so we hope you enjoy it. Well, let us know what you think in the comments. Do you think that any of our sort of table predictions or our score predictions are any different from your own? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to go and join our fantasy league. You can skip back, or I'm sure that Josh will he'll either put it in just
more instructions here, bang.
over my head and let me stop talking.
Please.
We'll look forward to catching you next time. So until then, farewell.
Yeah.
Like, follow, and subscribe for more content from In the Dugout, your home of the beautiful game.